Welcome to Cape Breton Movers and Shakers, where we have conversations with people who are doing positive things here in Cape Breton. I'm Richard Lorway, president of goCapeBreton.com, and I'm talking today with Will Roy and Erin Flynn, board members of the Sport and Social Club CBRM, or SSCC as it is known online. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
So what is SSCC and how did it get started?
So SSCC is a sport and social club, really targeted at, just providing a space that, anyone can sort of show up and be at and have a good time, build some new connections in the community and, a new place to, sort of get out and, have a good time on weekdays, particularly. And it got started when I was in the MBA and CED at CBU. I had a class in venture analysis, and I had to come up with sort of a business plan. And one of the things at the time that I was really missing was a sport and social club from back in Edmonton, where we're from. And so I thought, hey, I bet this would work here really well. Gonna do a business plan, and then, as I worked on it more and more, I thought, yeah, no, I think this will actually work. So really wanted to make that happen. And, pandemic started and that sort of derailed it. Took a lot longer to get started than we wanted. But back in February, we finally got some gym space and gym time and sort of launched our Facebook page and have been sort of growing and developing it ever since. So
you were a student at CBU. You had come from Edmonton. So did you feel that there were enough, I'll say, young adults, people in your category who were looking for recreational opportunities? Was there a market that was obviously underserved?
I think so. I think when it came to Cape Breton, I think there's a lot of this idea that, Cape Breton is an older population, and, that might be true relative to, some of the cities in Alberta, but, regardless of, sort of where most of the age group is, there is still, thousands of young adults around in Cape Breton, and then especially with, the boom in international student population coming here. There's tons and tons of young people that are out here looking for things to do and looking for ways to either reconnect with the community or connect with the community for the first time. So I myself sort of fit into that category, and knowing that Erin was coming shortly behind me, and not as a student, I was really recognizing that, it was really important to find some ways for Erin to start building her social networks here, that, weren't reliant on being in school, which I, was fortunate enough to have when I came. So that was.
And I think another element of it is that, especially as newcomers, it can be a bit hard to break into a social group or, like in the context of the sport and social club, to find activities and things to do. So I think for people who have grown up here and just stuck around, or even gone away and come back and still had a base of friends and things that they know they can connect with, it's a little easier because they may be continuing the kinds of activities they've always done. They may be, getting together with just a group of friends and setting up pickup games or things like that, activities that they can easily organize and have enough people to organize. But with there is a fairly large population of newcomers, I think, in CBRM right now, and it is a lot harder to do that sort of thing ourselves, and it can be really hard to even track down information about what exists out there. So just to try and find someone's pickup games is really hard to do unless they've posted it on Facebook and you can track them down that way, or you happen to meet somebody who's doing it. So I think that's part of why when Will started having the idea of bringing a sport and social club concept to CBRM, we thought it would actually work, because there's enough of those people who are needing a little bit more structure and more help to get into doing this in our age group.
Yeah. And a certain level of.
I would totally agree. I think it's always been kind of hard to break into this community if you're not from here, just because it's the roots run deep, and there's a lot of extended families, so people tend to socialize within those networks for generations.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So anyway, I think you really identified a need. Absolutely. So can you talk a bit about I guess we'll call it the culture of SSCC? So it's more than just people getting together. You try to provide structure and talk about the expectations in terms of sportsmanship and inclusivity and those kinds of things. Can you guys talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, definitely. So all of our marketing and everything that we do, we're calling it fun first. We're identifying it as having a welcoming atmosphere, and being generally inclusive. Part of it is that sport and social clubs are normally developed in this way. Like in other cities, they usually have an element of that, particularly on the gender equity side. So I'm not sure how long sport and social clubs have existed, but they do focus on making sure that it's not just a boys club where you've got a team of all men playing, and you can't break in if you're a woman or someone of a different gender. So that's a big element of it. Our games, particularly when we're trying to start up with leagues, because at the moment it's mostly been drop-ins. But when we have league play, part of our rules are that you can't have more than essentially more than half of your players on the field be of one gender. So if you couldn't have, say, 4 men on the field, if it's a 5-player game and only one woman, you'd have to have, or one person of another gender, you'd have to have a better mix than that, just to help get people actually playing and make sure it's a little more approachable. So that's one side of it. But also everything that we do, I think particularly since we are fairly new to the island, and have kind of seen how it's hard to develop some of those social groups and friends, is very focused on being welcoming to pretty much anyone who wants to come. So one of the other things that we advertise is that it is open to all skill levels and all fitness levels, as well as all genders. So you don't have to be like a pro soccer player to come out and play soccer with us. You don't have to be someone who has maintained a certain level of fitness to join our games, which is really great. And I think a lot of our players have told us that they appreciate that, because we've got a really good mix of people who do have that background in sport and have been playing sports for a long time. So it's a little more familiar and easy for them, and people who have either never played a sport before or haven't done anything active in a really long time. So they're coming out to a game and not even being sure if they can run for the full hour or however long we're on the field.
Yeah.
But I think because we approach it like that the whole time, and we'll generally at the drop-in games we'll do intros and introduce people to each other and do a little blurb about what our sort of mandate is and how we want people to play. It's created a really good community of people who are coming out, and they are all kind of the same mindset where it's about having fun. They can feel really comfortable playing in a group where there are people who don't know how to play and people who know how to play really well, and they can all play together and kind of have fun. So I think, yeah, it really is all about being welcoming and being a space that anybody can come and join, which is really great. Anything I missed?
I think the other thing too is talking a little bit about sort of how we organize. I think that aspect of that, we know that there's lots of sort of that informal things set up. And remember through Erin's work that people talked about oh, there's a drop-in hockey game that a friend of a friend is hosting. But again, if you are coming here, I think that's one of the keys that we've had, is that we try and keep our Facebook page up to date. I don't think we pretty much have ever gone more than sort of 2 days without posting, and we try and make it very clear and send reminders out that anyone is welcome. It doesn't matter if it's your first time or if you've been here for 10 weeks, and right now we're sitting in sort of the first break since the last lockdown ended, while we wait for the fall season to go back indoor. And honestly, we probably wouldn't have stopped except for the fact that the sun was going down earlier and earlier. So
Yeah.
when we started a game at 6:30, if it was cloudy, it's like, oh, it's 7, and
Yeah, you're
it's
done.
getting
Yeah.
pretty dark.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So the mechanics of it, I mean, so I show up, I mean, not me, because I'm too old for an up and down the field for an hour. But anyway, somebody shows up, and they don't show up with a team. It's sort of single entry. You compose the teams, and you have someone there to facilitate and monitor. Is that how it works?
Yeah, so at this point, most of our games have been drop-ins. Like I said, we're trying to start leagues, and leagues you'd be with a set team, so that would be
Okay.
a little easier. But yeah, for the drop-ins, you show up, and we have our board is 5 members right now. So usually we'll have at least 3 board members there.
Okay.
And so since it's fairly small at the moment, we're pretty good at recognizing if we've seen someone before or if they're new. So generally we'll go and welcome people, check if they're here to play sports with us, let them know a little bit about the game and how things will work, like things like splitting into teams, and then go from there. Other thoughts? What else do we do?
Yeah, like I think that's I think that's the key, is that people show up, and then usually also we recommend that there's that wear a light or a dark shirt, but we've got enough people now as well that have been regulars, and that we also know sort of where their skill levels are at, that we can sort of say,
Yeah.
Okay, well, like, let's split up and make sure that there's a roughly even number of genders on each team. And we joke a lot. We've got one friend in ultimate frisbee, is one of the sports we play, that is very good at throwing the frisbee, and another friend who is very good at running and catching and can jump very high. But we always joke that it's like, given the choice, we always try and split them up. So it's like, oh, you're both wearing like dark shirts, like Shoei, go throw on a white shirt, please.
Yeah, nice try. Yeah.
We're gonna
stack the team too much. But.
So that it's a fun thing. The other thing that we try and do in terms of structure, especially for the drop-ins, is that we never actually track a score for the games. So we tried once, I think, to track the score, and it gets a little bit more competitive, and I think you get a little down on yourself when you look at a scoreboard and you're like, oh, it's 10-0 against us.
Oh, gotcha.
But if there's nothing that says that, everybody can just have a good time. And then people like to, I think it's pretty common that if the teams ended up being lopsided, that at the end we're joking around, and it's like, oh, the one team that has been losing all game scored, but like that's the only point of the game, right? We're going to end it right there. And
we have a recreational purely recreational curling league, matinee curling on Friday afternoons, and it doesn't matter what the score is in the first 7 ends, we're always tied coming home. So it's all come down to that last end. Yeah, exactly. So do you have any issues getting access to sports facilities?
Some. So one of the things that we're really fortunate about is that one of our board members is actually an adult rec coordinator for CBRM Recreation, and she helps sort of us navigate that. But it is quite hard, I think, navigating sometimes what the sports facilities are. There is like the different school divisions, or that operate in one way, and sometimes I think the operations are sort of led by the principal, sometimes led by the school division. In terms of like field access, there's some fields that are provincially managed, so there's one contact there,
right,
and another contact in another spot. So sometimes we don't get like the leadway or the confirmations that we would really like for some of the fields, but at the same time, we're really, really fortunate that we've got Chelsea Curry that helps us navigate that, and takes probably a lot of the stress out of finding those facilities out for us, which is really, really nice. So that's one of the things that we haven't posted our fall season yet, because we are waiting for the confirmations. We don't want to post something that says we're going to start October 6th, and then on October 4th have to say actually we're going to bump it a week because we haven't gotten the final contract that says that when we show up at the school there's going to be somebody there. let us in, and that we can actually be there, as opposed to just sort of knocking on the door and they're like, "Who are you?" So that's been a challenge, but I think also it's with the makeup of our board and the help of CBRM Rec, we're really fortunate to navigate that without that much stress. So
Excellent. So I I was really intrigued by this idea because you just took it upon yourselves to do it, and it wasn't, you saw a need and you feel that. Do you feel that your generation is more of a has more of a DIY mentality perhaps than previous? Is that just part of your culture?
I think it could be, yeah. I think, at least for us, um, we have moved around a bunch and we've seen things happening and being able to succeed in other places, and it just it just seemed to make sense to try and do it here and to try and do it ourselves, because I don't know, it felt silly to just wait and hope that something would happen, especially if it's something that we really want to be doing. So yeah, if that same sort of um, attitude is something that maybe is a generational thing, I could see it, yeah, affecting what people are interested in trying, and maybe being a little more open to trying to, yeah, implement new ideas and um, break into something. It's, yeah. What do you think?
I think so as well. I
Kind of a
think
loaded question. I apologize for
Yeah.
that.
yeah, I think it's also it's sort of an interesting thing. I think it comes a little bit. I don't know if it's necessarily like a generational thing, but I think it's something that you see from people who've seen things that work other places, or yeah, as Erin said, like really want to pursue things because, or if you've maybe grown up with like a certain level of risk tolerance. I know that being able to think about if we're going to start this and what if it flops. I think like some of the things that helped us with that was looking at it's like, well, when we were back in Edmonton, like how much money did we spend playing things like soccer or ultimate frisbee for ourselves, and then I sort of also tacked on how much does a course at Cape Breton University for my MBA cost, so I can think of this as like it's like a learning activity, and we're worst case scenario, we're going to go run around in a field, so maybe we're willing to put up this much money, and like knowing that we could lose all of it without making a difference, but if we don't do it, maybe no one else is going to. So that's helped, and I think I see that a lot here too. I think there's a lot of young people that are taking it on themselves to to organize these things and make it happen. So I don't know if it's like a generational thing, but I've seen it maybe more here, and interestingly, maybe during the pandemic as well, because we've been as a region, we've been doing fairly well throughout the pandemic. And so I think a lot of people have been trying to navigate that and make, life as great as it can be on the island. So
I think there may be an element too, like on the generational side of, I think people are living a little bit more of an unstructured life now compared to some previous generations. Like a lot of us are moving from short contract job to short contract job, and there's a little less security and structure in the way that you live your adult life. It's not like graduate high school, get married, have kids, work in your 9 to 5 job for the rest of your life kind of thing anymore. I think that's been gone for quite a long time for quite a lot of people. So I think maybe our risk tolerance is different, or at least our risk, like our approach to what is a risky move is different. So trying something to see if it'll work maybe seems a little more approachable when you're sitting there looking at like, well, I don't have a regular job that is working for me that I can rely on as like a full-time thing to do. So maybe since there's more of that, maybe there's more people who are just willing to take the risk because it seems a little more approachable now.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to connect with you guys and get involved and go out for sports, how do they do that? What's the best way?
The best way really is to probably just send a message to our Facebook page.
Okay.
We monitor that a lot. If you don't have a Facebook page as well, we also have a website that's at sportandsocial.ca, and it has a comment form. So we're usually monitoring, our email, the things that come through the website, the things that come through Facebook, or also Instagram. So those are really the key ways to reach out to us. If you're interested in organizing, sort of something, or interested in collaborating or getting something else going that maybe you think that we should be doing that we haven't thought of or haven't started yet, really usually the best way to do that for us has been to actually come out to one of our events and talk to us in person. I think that's really important, because I think it's sometimes we'll get a request and they, it's something that they feel is very missing, like, oh, like, it's like, I wish you could do this for my sport. But they might also be looking for something that's maybe on that more competitive end, because they're used to, it's like, oh, I used to be a varsity athlete for this sport, and I'm really looking for like a men's league. And it's like, well, that's not really what we do. So
Gotcha.
sometimes it's really encouraging to, have them come out and say, hey, it's like, would you be interested in doing something similar now that I've seen sort of how this all works out? And then that being said as well, I know it says sport and social in the name, but one of the things that we've been pretty intentional about is that we've always wanted to do some things that aren't necessarily sport-based. So we've been really fortunate that we've been able to collaborate with Island Folk Cider House has hosted us to run some board game nights once a month. And the next one's actually next Tuesday. But that's been a really nice one that, you can be social, you can get together, and, there's no commitment at all to go run. Where, even though we say, any fitness level, some people really aren't interested in putting themselves out there in that way. So, yeah.
Sounds good. One piece of advice, if somebody was looking at starting a new initiative of some kind, what would you advise them?
I think from my perspective, I think the best thing that you can do is trying to be consistent. And trying to communicate well. But I think one of the things that's been really strong for us is that, when we say it's like, you can come out, and when we were doing drop-ins for the whole summer, we were going to be out there every Monday, rain or shine. There wasn't, like people waiting to hear like, oh, like maybe tonight's going to get canceled because it's a little windy, or
Right.
Maybe next week it's not going to happen because they haven't posted about it. It was just, every Monday, every Wednesday, we were going to be as often as possible in the same locations, running the same structure of activities, which, let us sort of pick up like one new person every week, pretty much, because sometimes it was like, oh, I'm busy this week, but maybe next week, has been good. So I would say when you're planning a new initiative, trying to be as consistent. It doesn't mean that you have to be frequent, but trying to make sure that it is very consistent and consistently communicated is important.
Yeah, and I would say also, I think maybe particularly here, building partnerships is probably a good thing to do.
Yeah,
we found there's a lot of great organizations that already exist in Cape Breton that are there, and a lot that are there to help new businesses, or that are willing to support new initiatives and new things that are coming out. And you can see it quite a lot in the business, like say the businesses that are in downtown Sydney that all promote each other and praise each other for the work they're doing. And I think it really helps if you can try and build connections with that community and find people to work with who are interested in supporting you, or can provide you with information or resources that'll help you get going. Because if you're just trying to build it from scratch all by yourself, it's a lot bigger of a barrier to get over to actually get started.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, listen, thanks so much for your time today, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. This was really great.
Super. I've been speaking with Will Roy and Erin Flynn, board members of Sport and Social Club CBRM. And we'll see you next time on Cape Breton Movers and Shakers.